What do you know about Interpol? Most of us have heard of Interpol, but what exactly is it exactly? And what does Interpol actually do? Is it a law enforcement agency based in Europe? Kind of. Is it an international police force? Sort of, but not really. Basically, Interpol is a liaison between international police forces. Interpol itself is not a law enforcement agency, and Interpol officers cannot make arrests or charge criminals. Instead, Interpol acts as a collaborative organization that enables police agencies from its member countries to share, disseminate, and access information. By doing this, Interpol assists in not only the prosecution of criminals, but also in the prevention of potential crimes from being committed. Before we look at quite how Interpol functions, let's get a quick general overview of it. Interpol is based in Lyon, France, and employs around 1,000 people from its member countries. There are currently 195 member countries, spanning all across the continents, making it the world's largest police organization. Interpol was originally and officially founded in 1956 as the International Criminal Police Organization, which has then obviously been whittled down to Interpol. However, the initial roots of the organization can be traced as far back to post-World War I in 1923. This is a period when police forces in Europe in particular were struggling to combat an increase in international crime. Advancements in communication and transport have made it far easier for criminal groups to broaden their networks, and law enforcement agencies really needed to collaborate more efficiently in order to combat growing crime. The International Crime Police Commission, the ICPC, was formed with the goal of opening up lines of communication between international police without being restrained by red tape. The onset of World War II saw the Nazi regime assume control of the ICPC, and it became inactive. After World War II, the International Criminal Police Organization, the ICPO, was set up and formally became Interpol in 1956. From the outset, Interpol's been refraining from intervening in any sort of issue that's political, religious, or racial in nature. This neutrality is just to ensure that Interpol's objectives are met in a non-biased and impartial manner. So, how does Interpol work? What does it do, you're probably asking me? Well, the governing body in the General Assembly is comprised of members from each of the 195 member countries. They meet each year to discuss details concerning policy, financing, and strategy. Daily operations are carried out by the Secretary General, who heads the General Secretariat. Interpol's office languages are English, French, Arabic, and Spanish. Interpol focuses on three main areas of crime prevention. The fight is really terrorism or acts against people, such as human trafficking, illegal immigration, and crimes against children. The second is cybercrime, which includes fraud, money laundering, and counterfeiting. The third category is anything related to organized crime, which has a heavy focus on drug trafficking. The core of Interpol's day-to-day functioning is via their National Central Bureaus, or simply known as NCBs. The NCBs are located in every member country, and they basically act as mini Interpol offices. It is through the NCBs that all communications are made possible. Each NCB is connected with its national police force. They can then share and access information with other NCBs across the world. All NCBs have access to Interpol's massive database. Now, this database has millions of records like DNA, fingerprint samples, passport details, weapons, stolen goods, criminal profiles, all the goodies, which is then transmitted via Interpol's encrypted internet system known as I-24/7. The I-24/7 functions as Interpol's personal internet and is invaluable for law agencies hoping to access vital information or to alert overseas agencies. It averages around 9 million searches per day with a speedy response time of 0.5 seconds. The data is contributed voluntarily by all member countries of Interpol at their discretion. Interpol then analyzes the data and, whenever possible, gives it a classification. The classifications are color-coded and are called notices and function as international alerts. Law enforcement agencies around the world are alerted to every notice and can act accordingly if confronted with a fugitive or any other threat. Notices are requested by a country's NCB and are then approved and released by Interpol's General Secretariat. The color notice falls into 6 categories. A red ball notice requests the arrest and extradition of wanted criminals. A blue notice is an information requesting related to an individual or individuals. A yellow notice is used to help locate missing persons, and a black notice is a request for information in order to identify a body. A green notice is a warning from one country to other countries about the potential risk of an individual. An orange notice is an alert to all law enforcement agencies about the danger of a bomb or a weapon of destruction. Red notices and blue notices are by far the most used alerts. A red notice serves as a kind of international arrest warrant. The fugitives are listed on Interpol's most wanted list, which can be accessed by anybody from their website. To be clear, Interpol officers take no part in the arrest process. They simply release the request. A red notice contains the fugitive's photo, their document details, physical description, and their fingerprints, and they're only released for serious crimes like murder, drug trafficking, terrorism, or human rights abuse. A red notice would work something like this. If someone commits a crime in Florida and is thought to have fled the country, then the Florida State Police would contact their American NCB, who would then submit a red notice to Interpol's headquarters. Interpol would then release a red notice for the individual, which alerts all member countries. If the individual is located at a border, crossing, or somewhere, the police of that country will arrest them and they'll hold them for extradition. However, red notices can be exploited by countries seeking to silence political dissidents. For example, if a person was outspoken against a tyrannical regime and left the country for their own safety, the country in question might request a red notice. If the person was detained and extradited, the consequences for that person could be quite severe. As a result of this, Interpol is very careful not to become involved in any cases that are political or religious in nature. Despite Interpol being the world's largest police organization, it does have its limits, specifically staff and budget. Common ones, it seems, nowadays. Interpol's annual budget for 2021 was $158 million US. That might seem substantial, but consider this. The New York Police Department's annual budget is closer to $4 billion US, while the FBI is granted around $10 billion US. Interpol is funded by statutory contributions from member countries as well as voluntary funding. The voluntary contributions typically come from government organizations and private entities. As far as staffing goes, Interpol does incredibly well with its relatively small personnel of 1,000. Staff are a mix of police officers and civilians. In contrast, the NYPD has over 36,000 officers and London has around 33,000. Because of these staff limitations, major law enforcement agencies will, at times, bypass Interpol and contact the relevant overseas police force directly. However, it's evident that Interpol does help police agencies achieve some results. A suspect in the 2004 Madrid train bombings was identified due to several police forces working together on the I-24/7. Arrests were made recently in Nigeria relating to a global internet scamming network, thanks again to the I-24/7, enabling law agencies to identify the suspects. Over the past few years, almost 250 fugitives have been arrested across Asia for human trafficking crimes due to Interpol's Red Notice system. Its database and operational support are invaluable for police forces worldwide. Interpol has also invested in research and training programs geared towards emerging threats such as cybercrime and counterterrorism. Interpol's core values and objectives have remained largely unchanged since its inception. Looking to the future, Interpol will clearly continue to be relevant as a crucial crime-fighting organization.